Coaches are just here. We'll bring them in. As soon as they come in, we'll start. This year, there's no microphone that has to be passed around. If you have a question, they'll be able to pull and hear you. So please state who you are and who you're with. So after Coach Sitake has an opening statement, the coordinator here as well. They'll have the question answer time for you guys. So just speak up. Just kind of be cognizant of each other. So if you're both asking at the same time, just kind of one of you defer and let the other one have the question. But we won't be passing a mic. After we're done, Coach Lamb, the coordinators will all be here, and maybe a couple of the other assistant coaches if you need to get a couple other things from them. A few minutes, so just be aware of that. So any questions anybody has on anything? If you need anything else, just let me know.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. Just wanted to express our excitement and just really happy to announce the 2017 signing class. And really, I mean, I think everyone at this stage and every school and every coach is probably saying the same thing, that they're excited about their class. But we definitely have put in a lot of work and just really excited that it's worked out this way, and the kids that we're bringing onto our program and our team. And just want to first thank everybody that's been involved with making this happen and allowing our recruits to feel at home, and that includes all our fans. And I think a year ago I asked for the fans to be involved in recruiting, and they did. So some of these guys are brought to our attention by fans, and that I mentioned if they're big and they can play football, let us know, and they did it. And so we were able to sign some of these kids, and just really thankful that our fans have been involved, and thankful for our administration, for President Worthen and Tom Homo and his staff, and definitely thankful to our team, and more than anything, really thankful to our coaches that have worked a lot of hours and a lot of time away from their families, and just want to thank their families for for the sacrifice that they've made and not having their fathers around and not having their husbands around at home as much as possible. But we're able to bring some great players here and then add to our family, and it's because of their sacrifice that it happened. So thank you to all the families involved and our coaching staff. And I'm really excited that a year later, about the class that we were bringing in and then the talent that we have joining our team. And we feel really good about the progress that we've made as a program in the last year and the things that we've been able to do as a staff, and specifically within the weight room and the way our guys have developed, and really excited about about the progress they're making right now. We're looking to be creative and changing some things, and as far as addressing some of the deficiencies that we may have, and becoming a more efficient team this fall. And they're really pleased with the way our coaching staff coach their players and the way they manage their position groups. Definitely happy with Ed Lamb as our assistant head coach and his role with our special teams, and his role as my right-hand man in this whole thing. And he has a lot of expertise and a lot of experience that has helped our team and helped myself specifically as a head coach. And definitely really happy with Ty Detmer and the offense and the way they've been able to run the ball and put our team in a position to win games. I think when you look at stats, that stuff doesn't really tell a lot of the story and what Ty has been willing to do and how he manages an offense. And putting it on the shoulders of our running back. And Ty is very versatile, meaning that he can take a lot of different schemes, a lot of different strengths that we have on our offense and put it all together. That's been really fun to watch. And I've had a lot of people tell me how smart he is, and as far as football, and he knows the game, and seeing how he puts it all together has been really impressive. And then, Elisa Tuyaki's done a wonderful job with the defense, just like I knew he would. He was built for it, and then seeing the experience that he's had on both sides of the ball. He's coached a lot of different positions, and, I knew that about him when he was a player for me at Southern Utah, and I see his progress as a GA to an assistant coach, and now as a coordinator. I've been really pleased with the way he runs the team and the way he gets his players to play. And so we're back here again. Everybody's back, and we feel really excited about the foundation that we put out there, and a lot of that had to do with our seniors doing a lot of the hard work and being great leaders for our team, and now we're looking forward to building off of the foundation that's been set. So with that said, we're open up for questions, and I appreciate you guys being here.
Kalani, John Kuhn, Utah Valley 360. Looking at the class overall, what really stands out to you about this group of kids? I mean, what are kind of their defining characteristics as football players?
Well, I think when you look at the positions, it's not really their final position, that they're recruited at and they're assigned at. And so the key to me is that that we were able to have so many versatile type of players, meaning that they could play more than one position, and they could grow and mature, or they have all the intangibles as far as what they need to play football, but it's also listed at different positions. And so we have guys that we feel can be great linebackers under our scheme, and guys that can play D-line, D-tackle, and D-ends, and guys that can be also offensive linemen. I mean, we got bigger. I mean, as far as our O-line goes, I'm used to O-linemen at BYU being humongous, and so we added some humongous kids. But the thing overall at the front, we added a lot of D linemen that have a lot of versatility and flexibility in their progress, and then they'll settle somewhere, And you look at the speed and the guys that we have at our position groups, and with our skill, we have a lot of guys that can play. E and Ed and Ty are going to have some arguments on some of these guys and which side of the ball they're going to play at, because there's guys that can play corner, safety, and they can play receiver and running back, and that's a good thing. So I don't think that they're limited to the position that's listed on the sheet, but that there's a lot of potential there to grow with, and that they have whether it's speed or size or power. There's a lot of things that they can come from that position, from their already their athletic foundation. Oh, and we can't talk about walk-ons, just to remind you guys. Ty's jumping at the bit, want to talk about walk-ons right now.
Kalani, of these 24 guys, how many will be going on missions first?
Oh man, there's quite a few of them. I mean, there's a number of them that are. There's also some that are still up in the air whether they're going to serve right away or play this fall, then serve a mission. But the definite ones, I mean, do you have anybody specifically, or do you want me to just go down the list?
I was just looking for a ballpark number.
Huh?
Nobody specific. Ballpark.
Ballpark, I don't know. There's always that number that kind of, it fluctuates, So, and then there's some that came home and then there's some that, we'll see what happens. There's some other surprises down the line. We'll see. Recruiting's an ongoing thing, so we'll see what else happens in the next few weeks and next couple months.
Tyler Stevens, Fox Sports and Scout. Talk a bit about the defense of linemen that you've recruited here. Obviously, in Utah, you've had stalwart defense linemen in the past, but in BYU, kind of seems to be following that trend. Talk about some of the guys that you recruit, especially the guys that signed today that come in.
Well, I think being able to project what they're going to be and seeing their growth, and also knowing their workload. We've always had great players here, and solid guys up front. But I think that's so. I don't know if there's anything special that myself or our staff does, but we can just tell if a guy's going to be a couple of years. I mean, from experience, I came to BYU as a 210-pound fullback, and within a month of two-a-days, I was 235 pounds. So not a lot of people gain weight during two-a-days, but I did. And there's a lot of people that have the same kind of genetic background as I do, so we can kind of project that a little bit more, and We have coaches that have done it. You know, you see Ed Lamb, what he's done in projecting guys, even for the next level at Southern Utah, and Ituyaki is the same thing. But he didn't gain as much weight as I did his first year in college, but
That's why I started
he's
coaching.
making up for it right now. I'm just joking. No, they're great players, and we feel good about the guys. And I think we got some really good players that have a lot of promise. But I'll say the same thing next year too. More than anything, these guys are good athletes, but they're great young men, and we got to know their families. And you know, our whole thing is welcome to the family and be part of our family. But we really got to know their families and be involved with them and get to see their transition from the families and parents and siblings being bought into what we do here at BYU, and that's been the most pleasure part of this recruiting season.
Kalani, Jared Lloyd, Daily Herald. BYU and Utah are always going to be tied. Utah State as well, kind of in that mix. You've experienced recruiting now for a full year at BYU as the head coach, and of course through all your experience at Utah. How do you kind of compare and contrast, like what it was like at Utah and now what it's like at BYU, because those schools are so tied together?
Well, I haven't really spent much time to see what their class is like, but if you're looking at what we're trying to do here at BYU, it's kind of what my philosophy has been on recruiting, that you focus on a lot of the kids that, especially here at BYU, focus on LDS athletes. And large number of our signees came from the state of Utah, because that's been our major focus, because there's a lot of members in the state of Utah. But we're not the only program recruiting in the state. I mean, you look at all the number of programs that have signed kids out of the state. There's a lot to go around, a lot to be shared. So we want to make sure that we have a presence in our LDS population, which is in Utah, specifically Southern California. But we've had some others from different states, and it's been a nice class, just being able to have everybody be involved in our recruiting. We take every phone call and every member that calls in and says, hey, I have this humongous kid in our ward, and this is his name. We watch the film, and that is a lot to do with our recruiting coordinator, Tivito Fangawa, and his staff, you know, the things that they do in the support staff. And, you know, Sione Kinikini, Jason Ayu, Jack Demooney, Russell Tialavea, those guys do all that work. And then these guys, they do all the hard work and seeing talent and then getting to know the guys, and they kind of filter it through. And what happens is the result, the signing class that we had today.
With so many guys deciding till today to make their decision, what was today like for you? Any surprises for you? Is it nerve-wracking, to come down to that last day and maybe not know what the kid's going to choose?
Well, I think that we kind of know a little bit more than coaches know a little bit more than you think going into signing day. You know, I think that if you look at the board and the names that we had, we kind of knew the nameplates that were going to be involved in there. And so I can't say there were a lot of surprises. For me personally, I prepare for the worst to ever happen. And so anything else looks great. So I'm like, they're not coming. They're just saying that. And, you know, so I prepare for the worst. So it's always good. And today happened to be really, really good. So probably not the best way to live life, but with recruiting, you kind of have to deal with that. And when you're dealing with so many different variables in recruiting a young man. But for the most part, we knew going into it who more than likely we're going to be our guys on this day, and you know, looking at 1:30 after signing day, there really were no surprises.
Kalani, Jake Hatch from the Zone Sports Network. Joe Critchlow was a surprise name on the list. He's quarterback. Can you kind of describe how you guys got in touch with him in the first place?
Well, maybe these guys on opposite ends, and we can do that more. Ed and Ty.
Go ahead. You may have seen Joe originally signed with Southern Utah when I was there, and so at that point the initial contact has to come from him. So while he was out on his mission, and in fact his parents first reached out to me, and the first conversation always has to be, look, we can't go anywhere with this. You have to contact Southern Utah. And Southern Utah is that's a successful program, and Demario Warren's got it going down there. They're going to be strong. They have plenty of good players, and so I think when Joe let Southern Utah know that he wanted to be somewhere else, they only want guys at SU that want to be there. So they released him, which allows us to be a little more aggressive in our recruiting and talk about where we see him fitting. And at that point, really, it was all Ty. You know, we're bringing in some guys that are athletes and can play a lot of different positions. As Coach said, Joe's, even though he's a good athlete, basketball player and things, he's a pro style passer. He has some escapability, but he's a quarterback. And so at that point, it was Ty's evaluation that was most important, and where Ty saw Joe's future at BYU. And maybe if there are any other comments, Ty probably ought to take it from there.
Yeah, I think he gives us some depth, and another guy in the program that is, like Ed said, pro style type of kid that you watch, was able to watch some of his interviews that he did in Tennessee, and really well spoken, understands the game, good head on his shoulders. And so when Ed kind of brought it to our attention, it was somebody we thought could come in and help us, obviously, or he wouldn't be here. So we'll give him his shot and see where it goes from there.
Phil Hyatt from IMG Sports Network, and this is for the coordinators, Coach Detmer and Tuiaki. After running your systems here at BYU for a year, what did you learn about the players that you've already had, and how did learning your system really affect your recruiting process?
I think offensively, I said coming in that we'd be versatile and try to use the talent that we had, and felt like, we kind of did that this last year. As you recruit, you kind of recruit for, guys that can play and be versatile, and I think we've done that. If you look at our skill positions, we're fairly young at running back and receiver with the guys in the program already, so there wasn't a big need going into that process that we need to get a bunch of receivers or we need running backs. We wanted to find the right guys and good fits, and with a couple of them, they can play DB or receiver, and so they're a great fit because whichever side of the ball we need them on, they can go and play there. So I think going forward, you recruit to kind of what you want to do and what you feel like you're going to kind of hang your hat on, and so we've done that with the young men we have coming in, and now having a better handle on where we're at and what we have going forward. You start planning for that, and we'll be able to work on that a lot more in spring football, where last year it was implement a whole new terminology system and the basics, and now we can kind of refine those and work on technique and really fine tune things as we go forward.
Yeah, I thought the players did a tremendous job, with our transition from the previous staff's defense to ours, and last year there were a lot of questions about going from a 3-4 to a 4-3, and really it's just a stand-up outside backer to the boundary that's putting his hand in the ground. And Cy Tautu did a really good job this year filling in that role, and there's the kids had great attitudes about moving positions and helping us out in other places, and so they were great that way. And just moving forward with recruiting, it was just finding the right fit. There's so many players out there that are good players that are in other programs, and ours is about not only playing football but finding the right fit, kids that would do well here and thrive in this environment, like Coach Sitake talked about, recruiting LDS kids and recruiting kids that would do well here. And so we feel comfortable about the kids that we've signed, big explosive kids that we can, like you said, move to different spots and try in different positions and just find ways to win games and help the team that way.
Sports Scale. This is a question for Ty and for Elisa. Is there a position group that maybe wasn't a primary focus in this class that might be in 2018?
I think every year you're going to focus on O-line, for us on the offensive side. You've got to have those guys up front, and, guys are coming and going on missions. Guys get injured. So there's always a need for really good O-linemen. And so that was probably our biggest need, that, and obviously we signed some tight ends this year too. So we wanted to get some guys in the program. A couple of those guys will leave right away on missions. A couple will stay and play. So, in the next few years, we'll have those guys coming back in. Probably tight end and O-line were the biggest focus, but, we're always going to be looking and find a place for a guy that really fits the program, fits BYU, and a guy that can play for us. We'll never, not sign a guy. We'll find a way to get him in and find those numbers.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the way that we allot our numbers. It's always going to be with the O-line, D-line where they have the most. You have, I don't think it's like 17 on offense O-line, but for the D-line it's 15. defensive linemen, which means every year you're going to replenish and get 4 or 5. And so, the class looks big. There's several of them that are going on missions, about half of them really, and the other half coming to help out right now. But we're always going to be recruiting corners too. It's D linemen and corners are the primary need for us, and it'll probably be the same every single year. And getting the best players at any position that can play several different positions and that again fit, getting kids that are BYU kids that fit in.
Mitch Harper, 1320 K-Fan. Kalani, some of your previous stops, junior college players had a strong presence in those programs, particularly at the skill positions. Was there any consideration to pursue a transfer or junior college prospects at the wide receiver and running back spots?
Well, first of all, we felt really comfortable with the guys that are redshirting right now, and so that kind of fits in with that group. You're looking at like Akila Davis and Micah Simon and Trey Dye, those guys that are redshirting, that we redshirted last season, and so those guys will be basically up and ready to roll this fall. That a lot of people aren't really thinking about, but so we didn't feel like the need was we had to need to go get JC guys, and we're trying to make the bulk of our living on high school recruits, and if we see a need that needs to take place right away, like Taipei Vaca, we lost Andrew Idy at left tackle, and we felt like we needed someone to come in and get us more depth and more competition at the left tackle position, and so he seemed like a good fit. And then Ty mentioned always recruiting old linemen. We want to always look for big guys, and so getting Mango and getting Seth and everybody had added to the list, and D-line, like Tuyaki talked about, we need to win the trenches in order to be successful as a program, and so a lot of our energies are going to be there. But JC-wise, you go there if you feel like you're not up to par, you don't have enough depth, and so I think that's the only JC guy that we went after, and then you kind of factor a little bit into some guys that are transferring and things like that, but that's not really going to be a big thing that we hang our hat on. We want guys that are going to be here for a number of years and not just for like a year and a half, unless the depth requires it.
Coach Dave Noriega at KSL. A couple guys that we've been able to follow closely, at least in Utah, Chaz Ayu and Lungi Tuafua. Can you just address them? And those are some 4-star guys. What did you see in them? And maybe whoever answers the Chaz Ayu question, whether it's Ty or Coach E, we'll see which side of the ball he's playing on.
Chaz will start off at safety first. I mean, Ty already had his chance of trying to talk him out of it. And so Ty's still trying to talk to Troy Warner and Diane Lake right now. But we want to have the best guys on the field help us win games, and we'll be creative and we'll find ways to get the guys on the field and get us in a position to win. But with Lungi and Chaz, in fact, I offered those guys. I offered them really young, and I think they just took a long time to commit, But a couple of them, investigated a lot of different schools and just really felt confident when we got the job last year that eventually we'll get the BYU type of guys that need to be here, and it takes effort from all of our coaches to keep in touch with those guys, but also from a lot of different people that are involved with BYU to just, basically give them a good perspective on what BYU is all about. And those guys were able to see what BYU is all made of, and they're excited to be part of our family. They'll be here this fall, so but we have to keep recruiting guys like that, and then sometimes you get on them early and stay on till the very end till they commit. And sometimes there are guys that just commit way early, like a number of guys that we had, sign. I mean, I think the star system's kind of crazy because if a guy commits to us right away, like an Isaac Rex or a Ben Bywater, and those guys that have committed away from the beginning, BYU is a little bit different, where if they commit to BYU, a lot of schools don't even try to recruit those guys because they know how strong that commitment is. And so the stars are concerned with offers, you know what I mean? And so that doesn't really reflect on the talent. And so when we recognize somebody that's a great player from the beginning and maybe early on in their career in high school, if they commit early, sometimes they don't get the respect that they deserve when it comes to that system, which is why I think it's flawed a little bit. But I'm not saying anything that nobody already knows about. It's just that happens. You're going to see a lot of guys in the Super Bowl this weekend that were 2- and 3-star athletes. And so we recognize 5-star and 4-star potential and talent right away and make sure that their character and everything that lives up to it and matches their athletic ability and potential. And then we try to get them signed here and they become BYU type of people. And that's the goal and that's the game plan basically.
Kalani, Joe was an example of a missionary who elected to, change a commitment and end up coming to BYU. There's other guys that have done that, and once in a while it seems like guys go the other direction. They're committed to BYU and then on their mission decide to go someplace else. How do you balance that particular aspect of the fact that some of these guys might change their mind, or some guys that didn't commit initially to BYU might change their mind to come to BYU, just as far as the LDS mission during their missions go?
Well, I think it's a sensitive subject, right? And so when people go on missions, it's always BYU's the only school that plays football that basically is affiliated with the church, and so we're always going to be in their minds, and the BYU family is part of the LDS faith, and so that stretches way out there, even to a mission service. And so if we have the numbers and if there are players that kind of fit our system, what we don't want to do is start recruiting kids twice, and so we want to get to a point where most of it is already handled and people understand. But that's the burden's on our part as coaches and as recruiters to make sure they understand everything that goes into recruiting and make sure they get all the knowledge that they can get, because if they plan on using on BYU as a backup plan, that's not going to work, and we have a lot of guys that want to be here, and just because a kid wants to transfer doesn't mean they get a free pass to transfer and a scholarship. We have to filter that out and look at and respect the kids that we're recruiting right away and the guys that are currently on the team as well. So we have to balance all that stuff out, and it's probably too. It's too. There's so much flexibility in it that it's hard to kind of make it a general statement. You know what I mean? So.
Kalani, what did you think of the recruit that landed in a helicopter? And
Well-
and kind of the way that is going with recruiting, with the ceremonies and all that.
Well, first of all, with the Chaz IU and the announcement, that wasn't something that he planned. He was approached by a recruiting service that offered that ability because he had a lot of schools that were in the mix, and he's a highly touted recruit. And so I think a lot of these places have done things like that and contacted recruits. And so I just want to make sure everybody understands that, and that Chaz IU didn't do that, and he didn't pay for that, and that was done by that service, and they offered it to him, and they highlighted his ability and the fact that he was still making a decision. And you've seen a lot of different productions that have done that, and we had an opportunity for him to make that decision, and so yeah, why not? But he wasn't trying to look after. That's not his personality, and that's not what he's about. But he looked at it as an opportunity to get BYU some publicity, and it worked. People are talking about it, but he personally did not do that, and that was something that was brought to him by others. And so, just setting the record straight.
Kalani, the previous staff signed an athlete, Mo Longy, that made national headlines because of his size. And while that's not somebody you recruited, I noticed that he's on your press release of somebody returning. Could you just talk about him a little bit, because he just got off his mission? Has your staff had an opportunity to talk about a guy that is about the size of a Volkswagen?
Yeah. He's big. And so we feel that talking to Coach Tuiaki felt really comfortable with the fact that he's humongous. And I think Coach Tuiaki wants to work with that. Right, E? I mean, maybe you could speak about it a little bit more, but we knew about him.
Yeah, I mean, just being new to football, we thought and talked just it might be easier to start at the D-line spot than it is the O-line spot, just so much movement and everything. On the defensive side, hard for an offensive lineman new to it. Normally takes him a couple of years, but if he can get in the way and crush the pocket and do those kinds of things, then we definitely have, had several guys, Kalani and I in the past that we've worked with that probably not as big, but similar in skill set that we can try to fit into our system. So we're excited to see what he can do.
When will he be here?
He just got off his mission a couple of days ago, just went back to the islands and I think as soon as he gets back and gets settled with his family, then they'll talk about when he'll be able to be here. But I think we're planning on getting him in the spring semester for us, which is begins in May. And I think he might be able to come out a little bit earlier, start working out and getting things under him.
Kalani, are there any plans to recruit Polynesia heavier? I know that Bronco Mendenhall started recruiting, evidenced by Mo Longy, but you guys have plans to go out there and recruit more?
Well, I think the game of football is really hard to comprehend, and so, I mean, when you really take a kid like Mo Longy, that you're gonna have to explain to him what a hash is and what the line of scrimmage is, and when you look at all the details of the game that we kind of take for granted growing up in the game, it's a lot more difficult than you think, and so the defensive side is probably more likely for them to play. But I mean, I can't say that we're not gonna be open to it, but we have enough kids here in the mainland and in the States to recruit, but there may be some guys out there that might fall in the line of where they can fit our scheme, and we think we can teach them a little bit more about the game. But to say that we're going to make an effort to go out to these other islands and other places, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of linemen in the Scandinavian countries too that can play football, but we're not sending them out there. So we're just going to let all our members let us know where the Giants are, and then we'll kind of investigate it through that. But I don't think sending our coaches out of country is going to be a huge practice that we're going to work on. There's enough guys. Let's look here first, and people that have grew up in the game, and then if we need we'll look at the other things as well. But we're not going to make a crazy effort to go there when I think all the kids in the state that grew up playing in the United States that grew up playing the game deserve all our attention and our respect right now.
Does that include going to Australia or New Zealand for a punter?
Yeah, so those things will always be available, but to say that we're going to send our coaches there instead of focusing on, we all have like primary recruiting areas, but we also have secondary areas, and then those vary around the globe. So yeah, those are being covered, but I don't want I don't want everyone to think that we're sending our coaches out to all these different countries, when we're trying to make sure that we cover, the United States first.
Kalani, with the idea that you have the LDS members to help you to bird dog in that, could you give us some idea of the number of requests that you receive, emails, letters saying, hey, look at this guy? Some may be marginal or not even somebody you would, look at, but
it's a lot. I mean, I could, but we welcome it all. So, there are a lot of people that are sending in requests to evaluate recruits, and that helps us, you know what I mean? Especially knowing that there's a connection with a certain young man in the area. And so it makes our job a lot easier, but we're trying to, like I said, we'll take it all. So I'm not going to sit up here and say, stop doing it, just keep doing it. Find some more, look for some speed and some size. I mean, if you need it, to look at what we want in a player, we'll send it out to all our members too. But it's actually been really helpful for us, and that's a benefit that we have with being involved with the church.
Kalani, you mentioned that, I believe at the end of the season, after the bowl game, you mentioned how it's important to have players like Jamal Williams that maybe don't have that LDS background. How do you feel you did pursuing, non-LDS athletes and in that realm?
Yeah, I thought we did a great job evaluating a lot of our non-LDS athletes and kind of focusing on what drew them to BYU to begin with. The guys that we signed that aren't necessarily with faith. You look at Tarek Buchanan and Keenan Ellison. You look at who am I forgetting? D'Lo Gunter. D'Angelo. He told me to call him D'Lo, so I call him D'Lo. But those guys actually, they celebrate the fact that there's an honor code here, and they look forward to the benefits of the academics, how difficult it is to go to school here and be involved in academics here. So those guys, along with the other signing class from last year that aren't LDS, they fit perfectly fine. You know what I mean? And they have great coaches on our staff that aren't LDS, Ed Lamb and Gennaro Guilford specifically, and that have done it, and they love being in the community and love being in the areas. Ed Lamb has a calling. He's not even a member, so he's the most active non-member I've ever met. Is that okay to say? Is that right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
What is the calling? So Ed, what is the calling?
You know, right now, I don't have a calling, but I have been asked to speak twice in Sacrament already in 1 year, and in Sunday school once as well. In the past, I was team taught with my wife, the 13-year-olds, and I had the scouting program for approving the sports badges, I think is the right way to say it.
This question is for the two coordinators and Coach Slam. What position battles do you see being directly affected by this recruiting class? And then what positions are pretty set for next year?
I think quarterback will have a big battle this year, so you can look forward to that again. The quarterback's pretty set, I think. But we've got, as Coach said, we've got some young guys that were redshirting that didn't play for us that are hungry. We lost 4 receivers to graduation, so that receiving core is kind of wide open for opportunities there. The running back situation will be, we'll see who kind of rises up out of that. Maybe by committee a little more. It may be one guy takes it over. So I think receiver and running back probably the biggest opportunities for guys to earn real playing time and to step up and be the guy. So offensive line, we bring 4 starters back. So we've got a tackle position that will be a good battle there. So probably those 3 spots, and then tight end may move Moroni down there more full-time. And we're fortunate to have guys back there. Didn't lose any tight ends to graduation. So, we feel good about where we're at, but there's enough competition in there that guys got to step up and come to work.
Yeah, same thing. I think the main thing for us was just to make sure that there's competition, so that guys don't feel comfortable. Obviously, we didn't recruit any linebackers in this class except for kids that are going to go on missions. But we get a couple of linebackers coming back that'll compete for the spots, and those 3 that started this last year, they're all coming back. And I think in the meeting room with them, it's always the best player plays, and you guys will always compete just to keep them on their toes, which I think is the fair thing to do, as well as best thing to do. But we got the 2 young corners that'll come in, and we started 2 freshmen at corner last year, and so those 2 will come in and push for spots. And in the system that we play, we try to play with 4 corners, and so I think in a way every single one of them will see the field one way or the other, if it's not on special teams, on defense. But I think the whole defense in a way is being affected by the class, and I think it should be that way every single year. If you're recruiting the right way and the kids are competing, it's always competitive, and they know somebody's been a starter or whatever, but it's you've always got to keep them honest and not getting into a rut with the way that they're playing.
Ty, of the receivers there's a lot of receivers that were hotly contested this year. The receivers that signed with BYU this year, can you talk about which players might play receiver this year, and will this be a recruiting emphasis going forward for the next class?
Yeah, so Tarek Buchanan, kid out of Elgin, Texas, he's a guy that will start at receiver when he comes in. He's got the ability to play defensive back as well, so we'll probably start him on the offensive side. And then, but based on need, if we have some injuries at corner, he can always go over there and be effective as well. Same thing with Keenan Ellis. Keenan will probably start at corner, but we know he can come over and play receiver. Very good athletes, both guys, good speed. So those 2 are really the 2 receivers that we have in this class that could play either way. And then, a lot of the young guys got some experience playing this last year with Talon and Aleva and Jonah, and then we've got, as Coach said, guys that redshirted and Bo Tanner, and those guys that played a little for us will have a chance to rise up. But in the recruiting class, really 2 guys that could play receiver for us, but could also play DB.
Kalani, one member of this class was already committed when you took this job in Jackson McChesney. What was that experience like to kind of re-recruit him to sell your program to him?
I think that was one of the first conversations we had was with Jackson, and also because his brother's on the team, on the roster, so being able to connect with him and talk with him a little bit, and then and evaluating him. I never really evaluated him before until I got the job, and then when we watched this film and got to know him a little bit more, it was pretty evident that he belonged in this class, you know, and he won state in the 100-meter, you know, last year, and he's a great athlete, but he was already committed early, and he's probably another guy that could have been, you know, that just cut off recruiting and could have had a lot more offers than he already had, and even still gained a lot of attention. But it's helpful to have a guy like that, because I think he helped his football team. I think he helped Lone Peak get better, because he was all about the team and not really worried, because he already knew where he wanted to go. So a guy like that was helpful, and you know, we benefit from a lot of the guys, and I don't want to sit here and say that we're these great recruiters. I really appreciate what Coach Mendenhall and his staff did here, you know, and some of the kids that they have in this program, and what they've done here. I mean, we're all BYU, so whether you play for Coach Mendenhall or Coach Groton or Coach Edwards, we're all alumni and we're all in the same family, you know, and I think it's important that we give them the praise that they deserve for bringing, you know, leaving the team in the way that they left it. And I'm very grateful to take over from where it's at. And a lot of the benefits even include a guy like Jackson McChesney that was already here and already committed.
Last couple questions.
Is the trend changing? It seemed like a few years ago, a lot of kids were committing early, and then you'd see some changes, and then today it seemed like a lot of kids were waiting kind of to the last minute. Is it coincidental, or is that kind of maybe a trend that we're going to see, is kids waiting more till signing day again?
I don't think it's appropriate for me to guess on what's trending. I'm like the last guy that will tell you what's trending, but I can tell you that our part is try to get the guys recruited and get them committed as early as possible, and our job is to make sure that they understand what goes into the offer and everything that is involved in the recruiting process. What happens a lot in this recruiting process, that we're talking about the guys that waited till the last second, but there's a lot of guys that lost offers by waiting. You know, the numbers change and they fluctuate. And I'm talking about guys that I know, the recruits that I think are pretty good players, that kind of got lost in the shuffle and end up not getting the offers that they thought they had. And so I think that the game of recruiting changes quite a bit, but I don't know if I can guess what next year's going to be like, or, you know, 10 years down the line. But I think we'll always have our guys that want to be committed early. We've already got a jump start on a lot of our recruiting already, you know what I mean? So I think that's something that we're going to always be focused on, is the future and recruiting for the future. But I can't sit here and guess on how it's going to be, and if guys are going to declare whether they're going to go late on the day of signing or beforehand. But my job and our coach's job is to try to get them to commit as soon as possible, soon after we offer them scholarship.
You're pretty solid, you know, in your special teams unit with Rhett and Johnny, and then you bring a kid like Ryan in who, you know, made a 57-yarder in high school. What do you see him bringing to the kicking unit, and do you expect him to contribute immediately?
As of now, I think Ryan's planning on serving a mission before he enrolls at BYU. So we're looking down the line. He's primarily, for us as a recruit, a punter, and so he adds Skylar Southam to the mix, who we also have on a mission already. That kind of gives us the next group of guys to come in and take over at the point where Johnny and Red and some of those guys are getting a little toward the end of their time at BYU. So I think you know, ideally we'd like to have Johnny graduate and the next scholarship guy step right in, but the reality is at the kicker position also there's a lot of talent that comes from the walk-on core, and so I think with what's available and who we wanted and who fits here, I think we've got about the right timing with with Skylar and Ryan coming in.
So I can squeeze two in. Kalani, with Lavelle's passing, you had a great opportunity to meet a lot of former players that came into town. Wondering if some of these players had met with you and pledged to support you in helping in recruiting, and how those conversations went. And then secondly, tight ends are so hard to get that can block and catch at the same time. You threw to one, an All-American in Chris Smith. Maybe you could talk about the recruits last year and this year, a lot of tight ends. Which ones come close to maybe meeting the form?
So on the tight end side, last year we had Hank Tuipulotu, Peter's son, and he's on a mission now, so we'll see him in 2018. This year, kind of targeted 3 or 4 guys, a couple could play on either side of the ball as well. Really, you're looking for big receivers that won't play, at the next level at receiver because of their size and maybe, speed, but they're guys that understand the passing game. Tight end's a really hard position because you have to understand blocking schemes, calls with the O-line, protections, and then you got to be able to run routes and catch the ball. And so finding those guys isn't the easiest thing to do, but I think if you look at BYU tight ends in the past, a lot of them have come in as receivers and moved to tight end, and it's similar to what Kalani said earlier about you don't know where a kid's going to end up because they grow and their bodies change, especially if they go on a mission. Who knows what they come back as? So the tight end group this year are guys that are big, long bodies that have the ability to stretch the field as well, can hopefully put their hand down. That's the part where you got to develop a guy like that, is to teach them how to put their hand in the ground and block in the run game as well. So we feel like all these guys have multiple abilities, and then it's up to us as coaches to teach them and to figure out what they do best and incorporate that into your offense.
Any other questions?
Dick, you talked about the former players. I'll just say quickly that they don't have to pledge their allegiance. They already did it. They already played for BYU. They don't have to prove anything to me other than for me to provide a home for them. So if they ever want anything from us in our football program, I will try to do my best to take care of alumni. And regardless of when you played, and like I said before, whether you played for Coach Mendenhall, Coach Croton, or Coach Edwards, my job is to make sure that we represent BYU and that we have an open door policy to everyone, whether they're fans, but specifically alumni will feel at home with us, and that's having them announce the signees today was awesome, to be able to see them from all different eras. That's how the legacy continues. And so this whole thing with the BYU football program was mostly established by a guy by the name of Lavelle Edwards, and we hope to continue his tradition. Like I said before in Marriott Center, that it's our jobs to carry on the legacy and the tradition that has been here for so many decades. And so, and being that a lot of us have a connection to him and a connection to the football program, we're going to try to make sure that that's always going to be the case for us. Okay,
All right,
thank you.
Thank you.